She fined me for swimming in my own pool and then had the nerve to swim in it herself at 2 a.m. in a robe. HOA Karen fined me for using my own pool, so I locked it and blocked access. Part 1. The violation and the lemonade that turned sour. It was one of those brutal summer days, the kind where the heat doesn't just burn, it sticks to your skin like syrup. Even the birds, hiding in the shade, like they were on strike. My wife, Leah, was lounging by our backyard pool, sunglasses on, lemonade in hand, just soaking in the rare silence of a suburb run by clipboard dictators. Our daughter, Ava, was in the shallow end, splashing, laughing, absolutely living. Me? I was at the grill, flipping chicken thighs, humming along to some old-school rock, and then I saw her, Karen. Wide-brimmed sun hat, sunglasses so oversized they probably had their own HOA regulation, and in her hand, the dreaded pink clipboard. She stormed straight to the side gate, no knock, no warning, and slapped a neon violation notice right on it like she was issuing a warrant. I blinked, mid-tongue flip. What? I managed. Karen turned, eyes narrow. You know this isn't allowed anymore. What isn't? I asked. She gestured toward our pool like she'd just uncovered a crime scene. This recreational water use, she snapped. Didn't you read the last HOA update? Leah sat up, pushing her sunglasses onto her head. This is our pool, on our property. Karen gave one of those tight little smirks that always smells like trouble. Under the revised summer policy, all pools inside HOA zones are now considered shared amenities. Private use requires written approval, especially if guests are involved. I blinked again, looking around like maybe a party had snuck in behind me. What guests? That's my daughter. That's my wife. That's my grill. She flipped a page on her clipboard like she was reading off a police report. No usage request submitted, no posted signage showing shared pool hours, violation confirmed. My blood boiled. Signage? Are you kidding me? This isn't a community pool. I built this thing, paid for it. I maintain it. Karen shook her head slowly, as if I were a toddler who just refused to share his toys. Sir, we all have to make sacrifices. You signed the charter when you moved in. Seasonal policies are within the board's discretion. I swear I almost chucked my tongs into the deep end. But instead, I just stared, fuming, speechless. She clicked her pen like it was a gavel. Oh, and just so you're aware, she added with the kind of smug that makes your skin crawl, any continued unauthorized use will result in additional fines. Then she spun on her heel and slammed the gate behind her. That night, after the sun had dipped and the grill cooled, I stepped back outside, still furious, only to find another notice. This one. Red. Violation number 2. Unauthorized use of recreational water feature. Fine. $500. I called the HOA number at the bottom of the page. It rang twice. Then that voice. This is Karen, how can I help you? I clenched my jaw. Yeah, this is Tom, from Cedar Ridge. You just fined me for using my pool. Her voice turned sugar sweet. Oh, Tom? Yes, I was just updating your file. Would you like to pay today? Or appeal? I laughed, but it came out like air escaping a popped tire. Appeal? You people have lost your minds. That pool is mine. You can't fine me for swimming in it. She sighed. Tom, the HOA exists to ensure fairness. Other residents agreed to share access. We can't make exceptions. I didn't agree to anything. Well then, she said, with a voice like syrup and daggers. Maybe next time, you'll ask before you splash. Then she hung up. And as I stared down at the phone, at that $500 fine, I didn't feel defeated. I felt something settle in my chest. Not frustration, not confusion, but fire. Because this wasn't about rules. It wasn't about fairness. This was control. And Karen had just declared war on the wrong backyard. Part 2. The rumors, the red ink, and the backyard surveillance. The day after Karen hung up on me, I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd cool off, that she'd glance at herself in the mirror, clipboard in hand, sun hat askew, and realize how insane she looked. But no, instead, things got worse, way worse. It started small, subtle. A neighbor I usually waved to on morning walks, crossed the street when he saw me. Another, the one with the creepy ceramic frogs on her lawn, gave me a tight smile, then yanked her kid away like I was contagious. At first I thought I was imagining it, but Laya noticed it too. At the grocery store, whispers, glances. One woman actually turned her cart around just to avoid our aisle. And then it hit me. Karen had weaponized the HOA group chat. Apparently, she'd told the entire board and half the neighborhood that I'd deliberately defied HOA guidance, that I was endangering community harmony by letting my daughter swim in our private pool. By noon that day, another flyer showed up, not mailed, just slid under my door like a passive-aggressive threat with a smiley face. At the top, pool access policy. Mandatory for all residents. Underneath, a bulleted list of new rules for private pool owners, and at the very top, highlighted in red, my address. It wasn't just a flyer. It was a public shaming notice. Later that afternoon, Ava came home from school, her eyes red. I dropped to one knee. "Sweetheart, what happened?" She sniffled. "Madison said her grandma told everyone we're water thieves, and I'm not allowed at her birthday party anymore." Madison. Karen's granddaughter. Laya tried calling Madison's mom, but it went straight to voicemail. The message was clear. We weren't just being fined now. We were being ostracized, and it didn't stop there. That evening they brought all... I looked out the front window and saw them. Karen and 3 of her HOA cronies, walking slowly past our house like a team of petty building inspectors on a power trip. They stopped near our fence, 2 of them with notepads, one of them holding up a phone, recording. They didn't even try to be subtle. They took notes on the flower beds, snapped photos of our pool gate. One even stepped onto our lawn and zoomed in on the filter system. I threw open the front door. "Can I help you?" I called out. Karen barely looked up. "Routine inspection." "Inspection of what? My barbecue grill?" She gave me that fake, pitying smile. "We've received multiple concerns. This is a compliance check." "Compliance check?" I barked. "I bought this house. I built that pool. What part of that don't you understand?" She crossed her arms calmly. "You agreed to these terms when you bought into Cedar Ridge." I laughed. Loud. Bitter. "You mean the part buried in size 6 font that tricked me into a fascist lawn club?" One of the guys, Douglas, shook his head and muttered, "Maybe you should move if you don't like it." They turned and walked away. No apology, no explanation. Just more scribbles in their little notebooks. And Karen's chin held high, scanning for her next target. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, Leia beside me, silent, Ava already asleep. But, in my chest, a storm, and I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't about rules anymore. Karen didn't want order, she wanted control, and I was done letting her win. Because the next time she crossed the line, I'd be ready. With proof and a plan. Part 3. The midnight swim and the moment. Everything changed around 2 a.m. I heard the click, that soft mechanical sound my backyard motion lights make when they turn on. I figured it was a raccoon, or maybe the neighbor's cat again. But something in my gut said, check the cameras. So I rolled out of bed, walked to the monitor, and when I saw the screen, my jaw dropped. There she was, Karen, wearing a robe, barefoot, moving like a burglar in flip-flops. She slipped through the side gate, unlocked back then, closed it gently behind her, then marched straight toward my pool, not fast, not sneaky, like she belonged there. And what did she do next? She dipped her hand in the water, looked around, and climbed in, fully, clothed, started doing slow laps across the deep end, like she was starring in a suburban spa commercial. At 2 a.m., I stared at the screen in disbelief. This woman, who fined me $500 for letting my daughter splash around, was now doing breaststrokes in the very pool she claimed was community property. She stayed in there, floating, smirking, for 15 whole minutes, then got out. Her robe clung to her body like soggy hypocrisy. She slipped back out through the gate, never knowing she'd been caught. I backed up the footage, clipped it, time-stamped it, and saved it in 4 places, USB, cloud, external drive, and emailed it to myself just in case, because now it was my turn. Not to yell, not to threaten, but to play her game, smarter, sharper, and with receipts. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, floating like she owned it. In the pool I paid for, the one I got fined for using. It wasn't just hypocrisy anymore. It was arrogance. Karen didn't just think she was above the rules. She knew she was. And that changed everything. At sunrise, I walked to the HOA office. It was Sunday. Locked. Didn't matter. I slipped the USB into an envelope, wrote in big letters for the Compliance Review Board, slid it through the mail slot, and walked away. I didn't even write an explanation. Let the footage speak for itself. Let them see what kind of leader they were defending. But if I thought that would end it, I was wrong. Because the next morning, I found a new notice on my door. This time, it wasn't pink. It was yellow. A warning escalation. Accusation, unauthorized surveillance. They fined me $1,000 for privacy violations against a board member. They called my legally installed cameras invasive. They claimed I was harassing Karen for catching her red-handed, swimming in my pool. I laughed. Then I almost screamed. Then I picked up the phone and called a lawyer. Because this wasn't HOA madness anymore. This was war. Part 4. The $1,000 fine, and the lawyer with the clipboard of doom. The yellow notice crinkled in my fist. $1,000 for unauthorized surveillance. I stared at it, then looked at my camera mounted on the fence, clearly visible, clearly legal, installed when we bought the house, facing my yard, my pool. But somehow, I was the villain. My wife stormed out the front door behind me, hair still in a towel. They fined you for catching her breaking into our yard? I nodded, still stunned, and called it invasive surveillance. She crossed her arms, steam practically rising off her. This is a clown show. You need a lawyer. Like, now. So I did. Called the only attorney in town who'd take HOA cases without charging the price of a kidney. Carl. Old school guy. Suspenders. Raspy voice. And the energy of a man who'd fought too many HOA dragons to care about being polite. He sat across from me, squinting at the fine like it personally offended him. Then he said, "Technically, they can't do squat without due process. But here's the thing. They'll bleed you dry with paper cuts." My stomach dropped. So what do? Wait for them to bury me in fake fines? Carl leaned back, chewing the edge of his pen like it owed him money. You document, you collect, and you counterpunch. They're betting you'll give up. You don't. You bury them in proof. I nodded slowly, jaw tight. Then he asked the question I hadn't even said out loud yet. You got footage of her in the pool? I opened my laptop, clicked play, Karen, at 2 a.m. Breaststroking like it was a day spa commercial. Carl chuckled like a man who just won a bet with God. Save that. That's the whole case. That night, I got my digital folder organized. I labeled it HOA War Crimes. It had the pink fine, the yellow fine, the video of Karen trespassing, screenshots of her mandatory compliance Facebook posts. The fake HOA flyers slid under my door. Her HOA group chat post that read, "Some people are hoarding joy in the form of water." I stared at that line for a long time. Hoarding joy. Like I was smuggling sunshine across the border. The next morning, Karen posted again. Another passive-aggressive post in the HOA group chat, this time paired with a blurry photo of my gate. Caption, "When neighbors weaponize water access, we all lose." I laughed so hard, I nearly choked on my coffee. But my neighbors, they weren't laughing anymore. Private messages started rolling in. "I'm sorry I didn't say anything sooner. She did the same thing to our garden shed last summer. Karen fined us for having a flamingo float." It was all unraveling. The fear, the silence, the grip she had, slipping. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I was about to take it public. Not with threats, not with rants, with proof. Because if Karen thought the $1,000 fine would shut me up, she forgot who she was dealing with. And now, the internet was about to meet HOA Karen. Part 5, the news story, and the sprinkler showdown. The moment the video went live, the neighborhood erupted. I titled it simply, "Caught on Camera, HOA Karen Trespasses into Private Pool She Fined." No dramatic music, no voiceover. Just Karen, in her robe, swimming laps at 2:13 a.m. in the very pool she fined me $500 for using. By noon, it had 10,000 views. By dinner, 25,000. The comments rolled in like waves. "This is peak HOA insanity. Someone get this man a city permit to grill Karen. She swims like she enforces rules, sloppy and uninvited." Then my inbox pinged. Subject line, "Local Channel 5 News, interview request." The reporter, Alyssa, asked if I was open to discussing the incident. I replied immediately, "Happy to share, especially if it helps keep her out of my pool." The next morning they arrived. Alyssa, a cameraman, and a microphone with the fuzzy cover thing. They were professional, but you could tell they were excited. Her first question, "So, Mr. Harris, why did HOA Karen think your pool belonged to her?" I pointed to my new motion-activated sprinkler, installed just behind the gate. "It's not about the pool. It's about control. But she's not the only one with tools anymore." After the interview aired, things got wild. People started driving by just to see the gate. One guy yelled, "Team Private Pool!" Someone taped a rubber duck to the fence with a note, "Protected by Sprinkler Justice." Karen was unraveling. That night, she posted a vertical video from her living room. Her face was red, eyes darting. Clipboard clutched like a Bible. She insisted the footage was misleading, that she was inspecting the pool, not using it. Then she claimed it was all a targeted smear campaign against her role in preserving Cedar Ridge standards. The comments did not hold back. "You forgot your snorkel of justice, Karen." "Backstroke bandit." "Came for the control, stayed for the chlorine." And then, finally, the HOA board started to crack. Greg, clipboard guy number 2, showed up at my door 2 days later. He looked like he'd aged a decade. He raised his hands like I might hit him with a hose. "Can we talk?" I leaned against the fence. "Want to take a dip?" He chuckled awkwardly. "Look, things got out of hand. Karen's kind of on her own right now." "Oh?" I asked. "So the HOA doesn't think I should be fined for using my own pool?" He looked at the ground. "Let's just say some folks are re-evaluating things." I tapped the sign posted above the gate. No trespassing. No floaties. No Karens. Greg nodded slowly and walked away. As the sun dipped behind the rooftops, my sprinkler sensors blinked green, armed and ready. Because Karen, she wasn't done yet. Part 6. The fence, the footage, and the last straw. It happened at 3:12 in the morning. I was awake, again, sitting by the window, just watching the shadows shift across my yard. After everything, I didn't trust silence anymore. That's when the motion alert chimed. I opened the camera feed and froze. There he was, not Karen this time, but someone else. A hooded figure creeping through the side yard, bolt cutters in hand, flashlight tucked under one arm. He moved with purpose, like he'd done this before, like this was a mission. He reached the new fence I'd reinforced just 2 days earlier, and started cutting. Clip, clip, deliberate, quiet, focused. I didn't yell, I didn't panic. Instead, I pressed the button. Every light in my backyard lit up at once, a blinding wash of LED flood beams that turned night into day. The siren kicked in right after, and then the voice, loud, robotic, echoing across the neighborhood. "You are trespassing. You are being recorded. Authorities have been notified." The man dropped the bolt cutters like they burned, spun on his heel, and ran. But the camera caught everything. His face, his clothes, the second he crossed the property line, and the moment he bolted like a rat from fire. And I just stood there, shaking. Not from fear, but from fury. They weren't just pushing anymore. They were breaking in. They didn't want access. They wanted ownership. That morning, I edited the footage into a clean 2-minute clip, time-stamped, labeled. No music, just truth. Then I uploaded it to the neighborhood Facebook group. Title, "Caught on Camera, HOA Trespasser Targets Private Pool." Within an hour, it had over 300 shares. By noon, the local news station called, and by sundown, the HOA's little game was officially on fire. Part 7. The spotlight, the showdown, and the fall of a queen. The clip went viral faster than I could refill my coffee. Neighbors started knocking, messaging, tagging each other. Even the ones who used to look the other way were now looking straight at the truth. One woman from 3 streets over sent me a message that said, "She did the same thing to my garden. Said I violated visual cohesion with my sunflowers." Another neighbor, the guy with the gnome army on his lawn, posted, "She tried to fine me for gnome overpopulation. I'm with you." For the first time since this war started, people were finally standing up. By noon, someone started a petition. "Remove Karen from the HOA board." It got 60 signatures in less than 2 hours. And then came the call. From the county zoning office, a man named Daniel, calm voice, official tone, said he had reviewed my case after receiving complaints from multiple concerned citizens and some rather entertaining video footage. He told me, straight up, "Your pool was permitted as a private residential feature. HOA has no jurisdiction. Any attempt to claim shared ownership is unenforceable." I nearly dropped the phone. So, they can't fine me? They already broke the rules trying to. That was it. The green light I'd been waiting for. I grabbed every violation notice Karen had slapped on my gate, every flyer she snuck under my door, every screenshot of her community posts accusing me of being a water hoarder, and I printed them, in color, stapled them together like a novella of suburban madness. That evening, I walked into the emergency HOA meeting like I was holding a bomb. The room was packed. More people than I'd ever seen at one of these boring clipboard conventions. Karen was already there, seated at the front, arms crossed, lips pursed like she was sucking on a lemon wedge dipped in vinegar. I didn't speak at first. I waited until the public comment section opened and then stood slowly. I looked around the room, at the faces of people who once avoided eye contact with me, and I said, "My name is Tom. I've lived here for 6 years. I built my pool with my own money, paid for every tile, every drop of water." I held up the file. "And this is what the HOA did to me for using it." Karen rolled her eyes, and I could see her about to interrupt. But then, a voice from the board spoke up. The youngest member, the same woman who had stayed quiet at that first meeting, raised her hand. And for the first time, she spoke. I moved to remove Karen from her role as HOA president, effective immediately. The silence was glorious. Then came the second voice. "I second that." Then hands went up. 1, 2, 6, 10. It wasn't close. It wasn't even dramatic. Karen was out. She stood up, still clinging to that damn clipboard like it was a lifeline. "You're making a mistake. He manipulated all of you. He weaponized his pool." A voice from the back cut in, sharp, loud, final. "No, Karen, you weaponized the rules." Karen froze. Her hands trembled. And then she walked out. No clipboard speeches. No dramatic exit. Just the click of her heels on tile and the sound of the entire neighborhood finally breathing again. Part 8. The peace, the pool, and the gate that stayed shut. The night Karen walked out, something shifted. It wasn't just the HOA meeting or the vote or the fact that her clipboard finally lost its crown. It was the silence. For the first time in weeks, no passive-aggressive flyers, no unannounced inspections near my flower beds, no shadow pacing behind the fence with a decibel meter and a glare that could curdle milk. Just peace. The next morning, the street felt different. Neighbors waved. One guy, who used to pretend I didn't exist, walked by with his dog, gave me a thumbs up, and said, "Nice job, pool guy." I didn't even mind the nickname. My daughter Ava came outside with her floaty, looked at me, and asked, "Can we swim again? Just us?" I smiled. Not only could we, but this time no one was watching with binoculars from behind a pair of hydrangeas. I opened the gate, stepped into the sunlight, and for the first time since this whole circus began, I felt free. That weekend, I hosted what I called the Sanity Splash. No flyers, no drama. Just a quiet invitation passed from neighbor to neighbor. Families showed up with coolers and smiles. Kids ran barefoot on the grass. Someone brought a bubble machine. Even Mr. Callahan, the grumpy neighbor who once reported a wind chime for being too cheerful, sat under an umbrella, sipping lemonade. No one mentioned Karen, but everyone knew. Later that evening, I found a small package at my doorstep. No note, no name, just a plastic flamingo floaty and a roll of yellow tape that read, "Private means private." I laughed so hard I nearly dropped it. That night, I walked out to the pool alone and just sat by the edge. The water glowed soft blue. The string lights twinkled, and across the gate the new sign stood tall. "This pool is closed to tyranny." I took a sip of iced tea, leaned back in my chair, and breathed. Because in the end, Karen didn't just lose her title. She lost her grip, her power, her myth. She was no longer the clipboard queen, just a soggy memory in a neighborhood that finally remembered how to laugh. And the best part? The gate stayed locked, not out of fear, but because I could finally choose when to open it. And that was the sweetest splash of all. Epilogue. The water fought the wind, and the wind. It's strange how something as simple as water can turn into a battlefield. For weeks, our backyard felt like a front line, a place where control tried to drown joy, where rules became weapons and peace became privilege. But now I wake up to the sound of birds, not whispers. The gate stays closed, but only when I choose. Neighbors pass by and wave. Sometimes they pause, ask if we're hosting another splash night. Sometimes they just smile and nod toward the sign. That sign. "Karen Free Zone. Trespassers will be sprinkled." I still keep the footage, labeled, backed up just in case, but I haven't had to look at it in weeks. Karen? She's moved out. Rumor is, she's somewhere on the other side of town in a condo with no backyard. No pool, no HOA board to command, just 4 walls, and, hopefully, a very long mirror. Ava's back to planning her birthday party. This time, it's pool-themed. Laya's been planting again, her hydrangeas blooming like they know the tyrant is gone. And me? I'm rebuilding. Not the pool, the trust. With neighbors, with friends, with the idea that home should actually feel like home. The HOA has new leadership now, real leadership. People who understand the difference between guidance and control. And sometimes, on a quiet evening, I'll sit at the edge of the water, dip my feet in, listen to the soft ripples, and smile. Because this fight was never just about chlorine and concrete. It was about voice, choice, and the right to say, "No, this is mine." So to anyone out there dealing with an entitled HOA neighbor, a clipboard tyrant, a rule-twisting power tripper, remember this: you don't have to shout, you don't have to break, you just have to hold your ground and hit record, because in the end, the truth floats. Always. And sometimes, the splash of justice echoes longer than the scream of control. The water is calm again, and so am I.